Good evening to you once again. The SAA business rescue practitioners have reached an agreement with government regarding funding. So this after the business rescue practitioner received a letter from the Department of Public Enterprises this morning committing to providing the needed funding. The BRPs met with creditors to discuss the way forward for the airline, while workers affiliated to SACA and NUMSA picketed outside SAA Airways Park. The rescue practitioners said they've exhausted funds to keep the airline afloat. So joining me now, NUMSA spokesperson Hlubi-Majola and SACA spokesperson Nsibanyoni-Mugambi. Very good evening to you, ladies. Thanks indeed for your time. Let me start with you, Pagamile. So today you picketed outside SAA Airways Park. You handed over a memorandum of demands to a DPE official. In it, you're calling on government to make available funds not only for the business rescue, but also for the voluntary severance packages. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Criselda. We are calling on government to support the business rescue plan and also to provide the funding for the voluntary severance packages as they've promised. We have a lot of members who have signed up for the VSPs, and they had expectations that this money would be forthcoming, particularly because the deadline for signing was last month already. So really, for us, the only thing that's really standing in the way of progress when it comes to SAA is the funding for the BRP plan and funding for voluntary severance packages.
But one of the other things also mentioned, Zazi, perhaps I can bring you in there as well. You also want the current board to go. You say that they should also shoulder the blame for the collapse of the airline, so there's no cause for them to be there.
Absolutely, Criselda. We have called time and time again for the SAA board and the management to vacate. We have 3,000 employees that have taken the package. And these are the people that should not have gone. The people that should have vacated is the board and the management who have presided over the corruption and looting at SAA. So we are very clear about that. It's a demand we made today. And we are saying to the DPE, they must make that happen, because the taxpayer can no longer pay for the sins that have been committed by these people, allow people that have no impact on decision making to stay, while 3,000 employees are without jobs. They must go, and they must go now.
Zazi, that memorandum carries a 7-day deadline. What happens if your demands are not met?
Criselda, we've made it very clear that we will not relent. We will march when we need to march. And also, we wrote a letter last night to the Speaker of Parliament and the President, make it very clear that they should give us a clear indication that liquidation will not be on the table. Should they fail to do that, we'll approach the High Court and interdict any liquidation process, and also continue to demand that salaries be paid. Criselda, you would remember that VSP was not our idea. SACA NUMSA actually wanted to retain as many jobs as possible. The DPE are the ones that put pressure on us to accept this VSP. And now we're at a point where they cannot provide the funding. And that needs to be done. They've committed, they must pay it out.
Pagamile, do we know what the details at all are of this 10.5 billion cash injection that SAA will receive? There's a lot of talk about it, but not much detail. Do you know anything from where you stand as the unions?
We know that this is the money that has been promised for some time. From the time the announcement came a couple of months ago, when government made that decision that they would make that money available, it was not clear to us where the money was going to come from. So, and even now, I think it's not really clear. And I think those are some of the questions that DPE and Treasury have to answer. For us, really, as Zazi put it, the key here is that we're really tired of the promises. We've been made so many promises during this process, since business rescue process began in December. And really, what is truly painful about the SAA story is that the people who destroyed this airline, namely the board under the leadership of Thandeka Mgoduso, who is still there as board chairperson, and also the executives, none of them have suffered any consequences for destroying this airline. But workers and their families have had to pay the highest price. People have lost houses, they've lost cars, their children have been kicked out of school because they've not received any salary. And this for us is one of the greatest failings of the Department of Public Enterprises. They are the shareholder of these state-owned entities. They failed to turn around the entity. They brought it to this point where we are today. And worse, they left the most vulnerable, which is workers, to bear the full brunt of the consequences of this process without even doing what they had to, what they legally obliged to do to protect workers and their families. And that for us is truly disgraceful from the department.
Phakamile, just on this cash injection that is being spoken about at the moment, I mean, what needs to happen at SAA? Often you find with state-owned enterprises that there's a cash injection that is being given to whichever company, but in the next 2 to 3 years, you find yourself right back at the very same situation. What needs to happen at SAA to make sure that if this more than 10 billion is given to SAA, how does it not leak out of the pockets again?
The first thing is to get rid of the board, and that's not negotiable. Because it is a fact that the board played a role in the situation that we find ourselves today. And government knows this. They know this. So if you are genuine about really turning SAA around, the entire board, the current board must go. The executives must go. Because a number of these executives have actually been implicated in some of these forensic reports which talk about the looting. If I can use an example, the Open Waters report, for example, talks in detail about certain executives where action must be taken. And to date, a lot of them still have questions that they need to answer. So even if they go, one of the things that we have committed to as NUMSA and SACA is that we're not just going to let them go quietly. We will follow them up with criminal charges because the suffering that they have inflicted on our members is immeasurable and they need to pay for that.
Zazi, I guess you would agree with that. Your call is also for some of these board members to face criminal charges.
Not some, Griselda, all. They were there when the looting took place. I mean, we found tremendous cases where the board was reckless and quite frankly corrupt. And like Phakamile said, we're going to open criminal charges. We are not going to allow them to loot further money from the state coffers. And what we are saying is that we need a brand new board. The entire board must vacate. We need to identify people that have aviation experience, that are capable of running an airline, management that is not corrupt, that want the new SAA to flourish, and be able to then start to create jobs, Griselda. It's so sad to see mothers with children, fathers that are breadwinners that cannot even pay for taxi money to get from point A to point B. We can't sit by and allow that to be okay. It's not okay. And also, we need to bear in mind that SAA also has a lot of support roles. I mean, Air Chefs relies on SAA. People that provide water, bread, food rely on SAA. So this is not a joke. And also, we've also called today, Griselda, I must say, on the fact that the government seems to be opening the skies to airlines that do not help us as SAA. You cannot go to Germany and allow SAA to take over the market. Now, the South African government has allowed foreign carriers to come here and take over the South African market. And we are saying that needs to stop. Protect us as national airlines and ensure that we create as many jobs in South Africa as we possibly can, especially post the COVID pandemic.
Zazi, I'm sure we're going to pick that up, when the skies do start opening up again, in particular for that international travel come the 1st of October. Thank you very much indeed to you both for joining us here on The Full View. NUMSA spokesperson Phakamile Hlubi-Majola and SACA spokesperson Zazi Nsibanyoni-Mugambi. Thanks indeed for your time.